What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and today we are going to look at the Roberto Luongo trade, which occurred back on June 24th in the year 2000. Now, this trade was between the Florida Panthers and New York Islanders, and a little backstory to this trade. Basically, Roberto Luongo had been, up to this point, the highest drafted goaltender in NHL history. Now, he spends 2 years in the Islanders organization, which included a brief 24-game stint in the NHL during the 99-2000 season. The Islanders had a horrid year in the 99-2000 year. As a result, they had the top pick in that 2000 NHL draft. With that pick, they would select goaltender Rick DiPietro. As a result, the Islanders decided that they didn't need Roberto Luongo anymore, and they were willing to get rid of him. Florida was looking for a franchise goaltender, so they picked up the phone and called. So the original trade saw Florida receive goaltender Roberto Luongo alongside center Ali Jokinen from New York in exchange for right wing Mark Parrish and center Oleg Kveska. So how did this trade work out for the two teams? We will start off with the Florida Panthers. So of course the first player we have to discuss is Roberto Luongo. So Luongo had a decent rookie year, recording a .244 goal against average along with a .920 win percentage. Save percentage, sorry. Now that .920 save percentage is second all-time amongst rookies. You may be thinking, wait a second, he had a brief stint in the 99-2000 season. Yes, but he wasn't a full-time player that year, so he was not a rookie. So he had a good rookie year. Now Luongo had a solid year in 2001-2002, ended the year with a .277 goal against average and a .915 save percentage. The next year was similar. He had a .918 save percentage, a .266 goals against average. Now, he saw heavy usage in the 2003-2004 season, where he would lead the NHL in overtime losses/ties with 14. He also led the league in shots against with 2,475 and saves with 2,303. Now, that year saw him had a strong .931 save percentage and a 2.43 goals against average. So, after the lockout canceled 2004-2005 season, Luongo saw more of the same role in the 05-06 season, where he led the league in games played with 75, regulation losses with 30, goals against with 213, shots against with 2,488, and saves with 2,275, while adding a respectable .914 save percentage and a 2.97 goals against average. Now, Luongo was set to be a free agent, and Florida wasn't in the best position at this point in time, so they decided to trade him. So he was a one-time All-Star for them during this time. Now, they would trade him to the Vancouver Canucks along with a player and a pick in exchange for right wing Todd Bertuzzi, defenseman Brian Allen, and goaltender Alex Ault. So we will start, for the heck of it, with Alex Ault just to get him out of the way. So he had an underwhelming season as the backup goalie for 1 year in Florida, recording an .888 save percentage and a 3.35 goals against average before he walked and left the team. So next we'll discuss right wing Todd Bertuzzi. So Bertuzzi, he appeared in 7 games, but he did decent. He recorded 7 points in those 7 games. Unfortunately, he would suffer a herniated disc, which forced him to undergo surgery, and then he ends up getting traded. So he's traded to Detroit in exchange for center Sean Matthias and a 2007 second-round pick. So Sean Matthias, he has a solid 6.5-year stint in Florida. Now, he wasn't special, but he was still a pretty good player as he went out and he provided a respectable 48 goals and 49 assists across 312 games for the team before he himself was traded. Now, he gets traded to Vancouver, ironically enough, for goaltender Roberto Luongo and another player. So, how did Luongo do in his second stint? Well, his second stint was not as good as his first. He provided a steady, veteran goaltender for this team. Now, over 5.5 years, he had a combined record of 122 wins, 87 losses, and 32 overtime/shootout losses, with a once more respectable 2.53 goals against average and a .919 save percentage. Now, he would retire after the 2018-2019 season, and simply put, he definitely left his mark in the Florida Panthers organization. He had his number retired by the organization. Now, this is more for stint 1 than stint 2, but still very impressive, and he will be in the Hall of Fame soon enough. Now, the other player that they got in this trade was left wing Stephen Anthony, who did not play for the organization. So we'll go back to here. Now, they also got a 2007 second round pick from Detroit for Todd Bertuzzi. Now, that pick would become the 58th, and they would trade said pick to the Nashville Predators alongside 2 other picks for goaltender Tomas Volkin. Now, Tomas spent 4 years as Florida's starting goaltender, and he had decent numbers, including a 2.57 goals against average and a .923 save percentage. Now, he was there, and he would walk after the 2010-2011 season. Florida wasn't anything special, though, so he didn't make any All-Star games or anything like that. Still, though, solid player. Can't go wrong with that. So we discussed all of this. So right here, we have Brian Allen to discuss. So for Florida, defenseman Brian Allen had a decent 4.5-year tenure with the team, scoring 14 goals with 53 assists with good defensive numbers, 320 hits, 339 blocks in the last 3.5 years. As his first year, they didn't record those statistics, unfortunately. Now, he ends up getting traded, and he also missed most of the 2008-2009 season due to injury, so his numbers probably would have been much better. Now, he's traded to the Carolina team in exchange for left wing Sergei Samsonov, and Samsonov had 3 goals with 11 assists in 20 games before he left the team. So, not the prettiest, but still respectable numbers. So, that covers all of this. So we also have to discuss center Olli Jokinen, who, remember, Florida got in the original trade, so we're going back to 2000 now. So Olli Jokinen had a rough first 2 years in Florida. And across those 2 years, he didn't do much of anything. He was struggling to do much. He had a combined 45 points in 158 games played. Now, he considered leaving the NHL, but he ended up staying. And that proved to be a good decision because the 2002-2003 season proved to be a breakout for him, as he recorded 36 goals with 29 assists. Now, he would regress slightly in the 2003-2004 campaign with 26 goals with 32 assists, and then he went back to normal in the 05-06 season, scoring 38 goals with 51 assists. Now, he had a career year in the 06-07 season where he had bests in both goals with 39, assists with 52, and obviously points with 91. He had another strong year in the 07-08 campaign with 37 goals and 34 goals and 37 assists. Now, he was traded after the season as Florida looked to add future assets rather than have one who was getting older. So, he left the franchise as its all-time leader in goals with 188, assists with 231, and points with 419. He still leads the team all-time in goals through the 2021 campaign. So, pretty solid player. His name is still in the record books for Florida. What did they get for him? So they would trade him to the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for a pair of defensemen and a draft pick. So the first player we'll look at is defenseman Keith Ballard. And Ballard was a good player for 2 years on both sides of the puck, offensive and defense, scoring 14 goals with 48 assists, as well as 328 hits with 337 blocks. Now, he ends up getting traded to Vancouver in exchange for 3 players. So they get a pair of right wings and a draft pick. So first we'll discuss right wing Steve Bernier, who had 5 goals with 10 assists over a single season before he left the team. Right wing Michael Grabner is the next one. Unfortunately, he was waived out of training camp, so nothing came of him for the team. Lastly, we have a 2010 first-round pick, which became the 25th overall pick. That was used to select a left wing Quentin Howden, and Howden spent 4 years in the organization, playing 92 games at the NHL level, where he recorded 10 goals and 7 assists before he walked. So a little bit of a disappointment. Now, back to this trade here. So the team also got defenseman Nick Boynton, and Boynton had 1 solid season in Florida as an offensive-minded defenseman, where he recorded 5 goals with 16 assists before he walked. Now, lastly, we have that draft pick, the 2008 second, which was the 49th pick. They would trade this pick to the Arizona Coyotes once more, giving the pick back to Arizona, essentially, in exchange for the 46th pick. With the 46th pick, Florida would select defenseman Colby Robach, and Robach spent parts of 4 years bouncing between the AHL and the NHL. Most of that time was spent in the AHL. Now, he would score 4 assists over 43 games at the NHL level before he would be traded to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for a defenseman, and a draft pick. So they would get defenseman Jesse Blacker, who he spent a half year in the AHL before walking, and they got that 2017 6th-round pick from Anaheim. That pick would become the 184th pick, which was used on right wing Sebastian Repo, who spent 2 years in the AHL before being granted a mutual release from the team. So that is everyone that Florida got from this trade. How did the New York Islanders do? So right now, the bar is already high as Florida got a future Hall of Famer. So the Islanders got right wing Mark Parrish and a center who we'll get to shortly. So Mark Parrish, unfortunately, his production dipped in his first year in New York. But he did break out with a career year in the 01-02 campaign, notching career highs in goals with 30, assists with 30, and points with 60. He had 2.5 more solid seasons in New York where he scored 23, 24, and 24 goals respectively before being traded at the trade deadline. Now, he was a one-time All-Star for the Islanders. Now, he was included in a trade with another player to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for left wing Jeff Tambellini and a defenseman. So Tambellini, he bounced around between the NHL and the AHL for 4.5 years. He had solid numbers, posting 18 goals with 28 assists over 176 games in a fourth-line role. So you can't go wrong with those numbers in a fourth-line role before he would walk. They also got defenseman Denis Grebeshkov. Now, Grebeshkov, he struggled in a half season for the Islanders and then was unable to agree to a new contract and was promptly traded away. So he is traded to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for a draft pick and a defenseman. So the defenseman was Marc-Andre Bergeron, and Bergeron spent parts of 2 seasons with the Islanders, recording 15 goals with 24 assists before he himself was traded in exchange for a draft pick. Now, before we discuss that draft pick here, we have it right here. It's a 2008 third-round pick, the 73rd pick. Now, the Islanders would trade this away originally, and we will discuss this in the Chris Pronger trade. Now, it does come back to the Islanders in this trade breakdown, so it's a messy situation. I do apologize for that, but we're not going to discuss this. This ends up leading them to get Travis Hamonic. That is discussed in the Chris Pronger trade. Now, they get it back here anyway. So, with the 2008 third-round pick, that would be the 73rd pick, the Islanders would select right wing Kirill Petrov. Now, Petrov was a highly regarded prospect, but he stayed in Russia for years. He spent 13 games in the AHL level in the 2015-16 season when he finally decided to come to the United States before he returned to Russia. So he was a little bit disappointing, but he was definitely well worth the risk for the Islanders. If he had come over earlier, if he was happier in the United States, he could have been a star. So now we have to go back up here to discuss the last player. Sorry, I got lost there in my notes. So they also got center Oleg Kvesha, and Kvesha had a solid 4.5-year stint in the Islanders team with 60 goals and 96 assists across 332 games before he was traded away. Now, he is traded away for a 2006 third-round pick that would become the 71st overall pick. Now, this trade will be discussed in its own video. This is going to be the Brad Marchand trade, so that will be out at some point soon. Definitely stay tuned. That will be out soon enough. So that covers these 2 original teams, Florida and New York. How did everybody else do? So we'll start with the Vancouver Canucks. Now, the Canucks were involved in 3 separate transactions here, so please bear with me. So first off, Roberto Luongo, the goaltender, he immediately helped provide stability for a team that had been lacking stability at the goaltending position, and he had one of the best years in his career in 06-07, where he won a career-best 47 games while adding a .921 win save percentage and a 2.28 goals against average. He finished second in voting for the Vezina and Hart Memorial Awards. He also led the NHL in losses with 29 in the 07-08 season, which was the next year. But he still had solid numbers with a .917 save percentage and a 2.38 goals against average. Now, prior to the 2008-2009 season, he was named captain. Now, you might be thinking, if you're a longtime follower of this channel, we did discuss during the Montreal Canadiens History channel video that goalies cannot be captains. Basically, because of this role, he was not allowed to wear the C on his jersey, and he wasn't able to argue calls. He was just the captain. But he couldn't do the traditional captain jobs. Now, he would miss a third of the season due to an injury, but he still had a decent year with a .920 save percentage and a 2.34 goals against average, as well as a career-high 9 shutouts. Now, he struggled in the playoffs that year, and some fans wanted him to be traded. Now, he doesn't get traded. Instead, he signs a massive 12-year extension. Now, he had another off year in the 2009-2010 campaign, and then he would step down as captain as a result of this, as he wanted to focus on playing and getting better. Now, he rebounded well in the 2010-11 season, where he would lead the league in wins with 38, while recording a .211 goal against average and a .928 save percentage. He had a solid 2011 playoffs, but he seemed to get tired as the playoffs went on. He struggled in the last couple of games, including a crucial pair of games in 6 and 7, as the Canucks would lose the Stanley Cup to the Bruins. Now, he had another solid year in the 2011-12 season, recording a .919 save percentage with a 2.41 goals against average, and he gets moved to a backup role in the lockout-shortened 2012-13 season, seeing action in 20 games. He recorded a .907 save percentage with a 2.56 goals against average. Now, he was traded at the trade deadline in the 2012-13 season, which we discussed earlier, so solid. Now, he ended the half season with a .917 save percentage and a 2.38 goal against average. In Vancouver, he was a 3-time All-Star and a 1-time William M. Jennings Trophy winner. Now, we will get to this trade momentarily. We'll get to it right now for the heck of it. So, center Sean Matthias and goaltender Jacob Markstrom were traded from Florida to Vancouver. So, Sean Matthias spent a year and a half on the team, where he would score 21 goals and 13 assists over 96 games before he would walk from the organization. And Jacob Markstrom, the goaltender, so basically he would take over the starting role at some point. He spent the first year and a half mostly in the minors for Vancouver, though, playing a combined 7 games in the NHL. Now, his next 2 years he spent as the Canucks' backup goaltender, and he would take over the starting role in the 2017-18 season. Now, he held on to it for 3 years, which included a career year in the 18-19 season. Now, he would walk after the 2019-20 year, but he was a 1-time All-Star for Vancouver. Not bad. Not bad at all. Now, back to this original trade here, where they got Luongo. They also got a defenseman named Lucas Krajicek. Now, he had a pair of okay years as a bottom 6 forward for the team, where he recorded 5 goals and 22 assists before he was traded away. We do not discuss that trade. Now, they also got a 2006 6th-round pick, which would become the 163rd pick, which they would use on right wing Sergei Shirilikov. Now, he spent 2 years between the AHL and the NHL, mostly in the AHL before he walked. Lastly, we have this trade here. Now, they would get 2 players here. They got defenseman Keith Ballard. Now, his offensive numbers would unfortunately decline over his 3 years in Vancouver, where he only scored 3 goals and 13 assists, but he still had solid defensive stats with 205 hits and 208 blocks before being bought out. Lastly, we have right wing Viktor Oreshkovich. Now, he only played 17 games across 2 years in the NHL for the team, recording a single assist before he was cut. Not the prettiest. Next, we have the Detroit Red Wings, who got right wing Todd Bertuzzi from Florida. So, Bertuzzi scored 2 goals with 2 assists in 8 games. He had 7 points across 16 playoff games as Detroit lost in the Stanley Cup that year, and then he walked as a free agent. Next, we have the Nashville Predators. So Nashville got 3 draft picks. So let me just get the 2 2008 ones out of the way. So they got a 2008 first and second from Florida. Those 2 picks would become the 9th and 40th respectively. They would both be traded away as Nashville traded to get another player. We will not be discussing that trade. Now, the 2007 second-round pick, the 58th overall pick, which is the one that we are following in particular, was used to select center Nick Spaulding. Now, Spaulding carved out a decent 5-year stint for the Predators, recording 40 goals with 44 assists as a bottom 6 forward before he was traded away. We will not discuss that. Next, we have the Carolina team, who traded for defenseman Brian Allen. Brian Allen got a single goal with 18 assists in a more defensive-minded role for Carolina over a year and a half. Now, he recorded 215 blocks and 146 hits in that time frame before he walked as a free agent. Next, we have the Arizona Coyotes, who received center Olli Jokinen, who scored 21 goals and 21 assists over a half season for the team before he was traded away. We again will not be discussing that trade. They were also involved here where they got two more assets, one of which was a 2008 second round pick, which would be the 49th, which they used to select Red Wings Jared Stahl. Now, he would appear in 10 games in the AHL over 2 years before he himself was traded away, not discussed. They also got a 2009 fourth round pick, which became the 105th pick, which they used on defenseman Justin Weller, who spent 2 years in the ECHL before he walked. Lastly, they also made a trade with the Islanders to get center Oleg Kveshka, and Kveshka for the team had a solid 15-game stint, scoring 4 goals with 7 assists before leaving to play in his native Russia, which is unfortunately a theme for these types of players. Next, we have the Anaheim Ducks, who got defenseman Colby Robeck, and Robeck spent a half year in the system, including a brief 5-year stint in the NHL before walking. They also got defenseman Marc-Andre Bergeron. Bergeron scored a single assist in 9 games before he would walk as a free agent. While we have him on the screen, the Edmonton Oilers would get defenseman Denis Grebeshkov. Grebeshkov had a respectable 2.5-year stint with the Oilers, scoring 16 goals with 60 assists for the team with 193 blocks and 125 hits before he was traded away, which we will not discuss. Lastly, we have the LA Kings, who got Red Wing Mark Parrish, who underwhelmed over a half season, scoring only 5 goals with 3 assists. He was expected to do a lot more before he would walk in 19 games. Lastly, we have defenseman Brett Supel, and Supel was a solid offensive player for a defenseman over a year and a half, scoring 4 goals with 20 assists before he walked as a free agent. Again, this was one of the longer trades. I do apologize for it being a 20-plus minute video, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was the Roberto Luongo trade. Have a good rest of your day.